some of the importance of how you interview, maybe some role playing on how you guys are interacting back and forth, expectations that you're having inside of those meetings. So hopefully we'll get some good one-on-one mentoring with you guys on kind of how to properly move people through the system. And again, those of you that are on the call, welcome. This is our Builders Corner, Builders Call. If you can, have yourself muted either on your phone, or if you're using the RingCentral app, you can do it on that as well, just so that as people are talking, you can kind of unmute and talk. That way it's the best way to record for the video itself. But before we get kicked off on this, who else do we have on the call? Do we have Yvette? Are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. And then we've got a 765 number. Remind me who that is?
It's Rachel.
Rachel, good to have you.
Thanks.
Great week. Excited to see how things pan out. I know you got hammered with that storm, so that's not helping things, but make it a good day for phoning, right?
Yep. We just got a little bit of ice, but the snow's going to hit here in about an hour probably. So I'm waiting to see what we have.
Gotcha. All right, well, we'll kick this off again. I want to make you guys aware of a couple of things, and I'm going to share my screen in just a second here. If you are on a computer and you can see that through the RingCentral video conference, great. I'm going to share my screen, share with you guys a few things on the screen as it relates to some of these items that I think will be helpful for you as you're bringing people into the agency. What I've got on the screen right now, just let me know if you can't see it, but I want to make you guys aware of a couple of things that we've changed on the website just to help you guys deal with some of the training, both on the personal mentor side, everything that we do on the group mentor side and on the builders calls, as well as the majority of the Symmetry calls, the majority of the Smith Master Agency calls. Most of those are recorded. So if you guys go to agent training, and again, you're not going to see some of this stuff in your login. You're not going to see these 10 steps because it was moved over to the 5 steps. Everything is on my screen just because I've got full access to it. But if you go to the training tab, one of the things I want you guys to be aware of that I want each of you to really leverage hard is this video audio training. When you click on that video audio training, you should see something that looks like this with the Colburn Financial, Colburn Agency. Really strongly suggest that you guys utilize the mentor. Every mentor session that we do on Thursdays are going to be on here. I'm working on updating the details to these. Okay, so you'll see yesterday's is on here, submitted and issued dates and info, and Stoic philosophy. Kind of the details are written there of what it is. I would strongly suggest that you guys look through these. They're all here from all the way back to September. I'm working on putting in the details of all of these so that you know exactly what they are. But virtual mentor update, when we updated and released the virtual mentor, there's some training there. A must-see on op training. Projecting onto the client mentor session, talking about how we prevent others from projecting our own situations into the client. So all these things, again, if you've got agents coming in, which all of you do as you recruit people in and as you bring people into the system, it's vital that they understand where to get things that does not require you to be the point of contact every single time. You'll find that early on that may be a good, and it might make you feel good that people are coming to you for everything. But trust me, when you have 30, 40, 50, 100 people trying to come to you for everything, you will not have a balanced life. It'll be all absorbed in trying to help other people. So number one, make sure you understand where this is. But I really want to make you guys aware of the Builders Corner. And again, I'm working on putting the details here. You'll have to, some of these are updated with some of the details, but if you go from the beginning here all the way through these and you look at them, you will find that every one of these videos, these are all of our Friday builders calls. Every single one of them are on here. I try to get them updated a day or two, maybe same day. It's a little bit of a process to get them on the website effectively and professionally. But go here again. Everything that we've learned from, the beginning of how the system works, the Visita training, to understanding the ins and outs of the interview process, some of the role playing that we've done on the interviews, all of that's going to be on here. And one of the things that we are going to also begin to do, and I've already done one yesterday, as I go through some of these interviews myself, I'm going to be recording some of these interviews, and I'm going to be posting them on here so that you can see a full 40-minute interview live. What does it sound like? What does it look like? What am I saying? How am I setting expectations up? And we're going to be doing the same thing with Chris, be doing the same thing with a few of the others that feel comfortable with that. In response to that, we'll provide those on this website. Again, we'll provide them here. We want you guys to leverage this. And again, all the others are here, the master agency calls, the symmetry calls, all of those things are on here. If you can't find them here, I'll remind you, if you can't find the symmetry calls here, go to Agent Training or go to Symmetry's website. And again, you guys should know this already, but I think it's super important that you're reminded where to get the training. So if you're missing out on any of the calls, I believe they have all of the, again, they have the webinars, they have the training videos on Symmetry's website. And then all of these calls are on here. So any of the advanced market training, I don't get paid to practice, all these things here, you're going to get even more. Guys, there's so much training on here that literally all you should be doing when you're driving from meeting to meeting should be spending time absorbing this information. It's all about understanding and absorbing the content. So just want to make you aware of that. If we go back to the training here, any questions at all on, and again, this is important because as you'll notice, important training on Visita. As you go in here, I don't need to be the one every single time teaching you guys. These are all, walking you through the ins and outs of how to use Visita, the ins and outs of, beginning to end. How do we log a client? How do we log an interview? How do we respond inside of Visita? So again, I don't want to be going over the same things every single time we have these sessions, but I want them to be valuable for you. So it's important that you leverage these, go watch them, one for you, but two, to know where to go when one of your recruits comes in and says, hey, I know there was a good session on such and such. I can't find it. Where do I go? Okay, so leverage these, lead from the front, make sure you're aware of what these are and where they're at so that we can kind of be on the same page for these items. Any questions on that at all? Okay, I guess there's no questions. Good. So as we do in most mentor sessions, I'm going to give just a minute or two. I want to hear, and I really want you guys to be involved in this, okay? I need to hear what obstacles are you guys running into specific to recruiting? As you're interviewing, as you're spending time with people, as you're, is it issues with Visita? Is it issues with getting them to move from the first meeting to the second meeting? Is it onboarding them? Is it contracting? Getting them committed to conference? What is it that you guys are struggling with? And then when we get done with that, and I'll need you guys to remind me of this, I do want to cover conference. I want to cover conference tickets. I want to cover some of those items as we end this call, because again, as recruiters, conference is probably one of the most vital things that we can be leveraging. So I'm going to open this up. Most of you guys are muted, so if you can't talk and you are talking, make sure that you unmute yourself or you send a chat so that we know that you're muted and you can't get unmuted. Questions?
Okay, Mike, I'll ask a question. This is Ron. Balancing the production and the recruiting. I mean, different people do it different ways. I mean, what's some suggestions on the best practices for continuing to be effective in your production and continuing to be effective in recruiting?
Okay. Good question. So best effective way to be balanced between the two most important things in growing an agency, and that's personally producing and recruiting. I'll cover that. Anyone else have any other questions specific to recruiting? Guys, there is no dumb questions here. If you're thinking it, someone else is thinking it. Okay, we have a very talkative group. All right, Ron, I will cover your specific question.
I'll ask you another one, Mike. Just to keep the ball going.
Okay.
Interacting with your team. What's talking about?
Yeah.
How do you not do too much so they get dependent on you, but enough, especially in the beginning, to keep them moving forward and confident?
No, that's good. So I'm going to answer this. Actually, my initial response is going to deal with both of them. So I have found, again, if you put yourself in the shoes of how would you want your leader to lead you, if you think of it from that context initially, I think we can kind of start to answer both of those questions. So as it relates to balancing recruiting with production, first of all, we have, and if you don't know where to get them, I'm happy to let you know where you can get them, but we have 3 schedules that are already pre-templated that help an agent understand what a normal schedule would look like on a full production standpoint, on a brand new recruiter that's still producing, as well as a full agency building. You're mainly doing recruiting and mentoring and things of that nature. So we've got those templated calendars that you guys can utilize to kind of block out your time and help people kind of be aware of what the standard expectation should be as it relates to timing and as it relates to balance. Having said that, I think what my first response was making sure that you are doing things on a daily basis that you would want your team to be doing. So if you're leading from the front and you're I was having a very good conversation with Omar this morning. I really appreciated his perspective. If we're honest with ourselves as people, we are very lazy. Doesn't mean that we're lazy at everything, but I think we can all look at places in our lives where we're lazy. And that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. It just means that there's areas that we can grow in. And so oftentimes when I talk with someone that is struggling, and I'm not picking on any one person, but when people are struggling with their calendar, it tends to be that they're lazy in a certain area, or they're letting their calendar control their situation rather than the other way around. So when you're balancing production and recruiting, I would tell you early on, when you're brand new starting an agency, you shouldn't be spending more than about 4 or 5 hours a week on recruiting. There's no need to be spending more time than that. The reality is that the way our system is set up is the brunt of all of your interviews are going to be one of 2 things. They're going to be 15-minute introductory interviews and 40-minute full interviews. Not all of your 15-minute interviews are going to pan into 40-minute interviews. So if you have, and we block this time on everyone's calendar when we connect you into the system using Visita and all these things in the cold market side. Again, I think we've got 11 people now that are hooked into the cold market side of recruiting and connected and synced into our systems there. And if you're not, we can talk to you about doing that when the time is best for you to do that. But all of you have the ability to block out the times that people will schedule on your calendar. So you shouldn't be getting overloaded with interviews during times that you're doing other things. So my suggestion, and I just did this with Karen yesterday, block out 2 hours a day. It might be 2 hours on Monday, 2 hours on Wednesday, and maybe an hour on Friday or something of that nature, to where those are the only times that you should be doing recruiting, okay? And it's just like when you were brand new starting out with production, trying to get the rhythm of how production works. It's the same thing with recruiting. You should be able to do in an hour time slot, you can do 4 interviews, introductory interviews. And you can do them very effectively. There is no need to go longer than 15 minutes on an introductory interview. Then if you've got another 2-hour slot, you've got time for 2 full interviews plus a couple of other introductory interviews. Not all of your introductory interviews are going to flow into full-time interviews. So if you've got about 5 hours locked away, that should equate to somewhere between, again, 5 to 6 introductory interviews and 1 or 2 or 3 full interviews, is what that really should equate to. Starting out, I really don't want you doing any more than 4 to 5 hours of recruiting, because then it's going to take away from vital production time. So make sure that you're controlling. Again, we can do that with the technology. We can control what time, how much time. I would encourage you to talk to your upline, talk to Chris, talk to me on kind of how you've got that structured and if it needs to be adjusted. Because here's the reality, guys. When you start recruiting, you might think recruiting is important, but the number one important thing is personal production while you're recruiting. If you get this flipped around, and if you think that it's an easy way out of producing or whatever, then you literally you shouldn't be recruiting. Because the only way, and I'll use Omar as a very good example, who would want to follow, what type of person would you rather follow? Would you rather follow Omar, who's doing $40,000 a month, or would you rather follow, let's just put me on the docket here. Would you rather follow me and I'm not doing any production? Now I'm saying me as a new agent, okay? I've done plenty of production. People don't have a problem following me. But I'm just saying, as a new agent coming in, if you're not doing production, you're not going to validate who we are and what this opportunity truly is. So you've got to balance those. Now, I'll dovetail into your second question, Ron, in that how do we best interact with the team, and how do we make sure that they're not dependent on you? When you start recruiting, and I've already done this for the majority of you, I think every single one of you that has an agency or the beginning, the newly growing agency. Ron, you've got your own agency chat. You know, Rachel's got her own. Yvette, happy to get you one if you need to. I know the Santos team has theirs. Omar, if you'd like one. Again, anyone who's got agents contracted and they're actively recruiting, we want to make you a private channel inside of Slack so that you can communicate, and your upline will be in that channel. Because again, this is an opportunity for us to facilitate what is the proper way to communicate. How should you be communicating with your team? What is the best thing and the best way? And really, guys, you can take a lot of what we're doing in other channels, the way that we respond in general, the way that we're talking in production, the way that you guys are operating inside of your cash commitment challenge groups. All of those are places that we're trying to facilitate opportunities for you to have those conversations and to open up and to become the mentor to your team. Okay. Again, I'm going to say this again. You won't be able to effectively communicate to your team if you're not producing. They're not going to look at you as an effective leader if you're not out there doing. That's just the cold, hard reality truth to the situation. So what I learned early on, and some of you are going to have to learn the hard way on this, what I learned early on is that you can't spoon feed your agents. When someone asks you a question, okay, if someone comes to me, and guys, those of you that have been mentored by me, that have been messaging back and forth with me in Slack, you're going to respond and realize that this is exactly the way I respond to you. It's very rare when you when you ask something that I just give you what you ask. You'll hear me say, hey, have you looked at it on the Virtual Mentor? Or this is the location you can find it on Agent Training. Or that's in a video that we did yesterday. Or were you on? And you'll hear phrases like, hey, what did you, and I'll direct message people. Hey, what did you think about the conference call yesterday? Well, you'll get two responses. I wasn't on it, or man, I thought it was phenomenal. And if you're not on it, my response is, why are you choosing not to plug in? You've got to correspond with your team in a way that doesn't crutch them into always utilizing you. And that's going to do two things. Number one, it's going to free up your time. Number two, it's going to make them more independent, because you want independent agents. Okay, you want people that you don't have to constantly haggle them about getting stuff done, getting things put in. Okay, you're going to have too much stuff going as an agency owner to deal with all of that. So you need very independent-minded entrepreneurs to make this really to have you not pull your hair out doing this. Okay, and I can tell you that our agency as a whole, guys, I have a lot of time to spend doing the things that I want to do, because we've created a culture of the team helps you. You don't come to me for everything. You know, Jen has her job, leverage her on her stuff. You know, Chris has expertise in certain things. Elazar's phenomenal at phoning. Like, again, we've kind of built these systems out to where not everyone's relying on me. I don't need all that power. I don't want that power. I want the team to be the one to run and manage what's going on. So you've got to think of it from that standpoint. And Ron, I don't know if that's helped answer those two questions, but does that kind of help what it was that you were looking for?
Yeah, that definitely. You know, I want to throw some things out also so that everybody, especially new people, kind of get a. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Any other questions? And then I want to dovetail into conference. I want to look at, you can see kind of registrations. We're going to talk about registration and who's actually registered. Any other questions before we dovetail into that?
Yeah, Mike, I got one, and I know it's in your videos and stuff too, but just real quick, in your interviews and the experience that, with what are like 3 key things, and as far as commitment, you always ask of every recruit, within either the first one or just the second one, maybe the first one.
Perfect. No, that's perfect. I will do that I'll go through the first, the second, and the onboarding, all of those items. So I think there's commitments that you can have on every single one of those interactions. So that's a really good question, actually. What I would tell you to respond to that. So first interview, guys, keep in mind, first interviews, and I'm gonna go ahead and pause the sharing on this just so that it's not too distracting. But the very first 15-minute interview, keep in mind that most of these 15-minute interviews are coming strictly from cold market, okay? So you've got to remember, again, you'll hear me say this, put yourself in someone else's shoes that's interviewing someone, okay? Interviewing someone for the very first time. Think about when you came into the system, Sean, Rachel, Yvette, Paul, Omar, Jeffrey, when you guys came, all of you were cold market, every single one of you. The vast majority of you guys on this call is cold market, which is the system that we're leveraging for recruiting. So when you interacted, what made you respond? What did Chris say? What did I say? What was said that caused you to be engaged, and then flip that on your process? So what we have found, okay, first meeting, and I'll share some of the actual videos of my first first interview, so you guys see how I do it. It's very basic. It's 3-part. Okay, the very first part is I want to hear what you are looking for. Okay, what is your interest? What intrigued you? in the opportunity. And guys, I explain this in the very beginning of my conversation. I control the conversation. So I might chit chat for 30 seconds. Karen's heard me do this several times, chit chat for 30 seconds, 60 seconds. And then I go straight into, hey, Bob, I know that you didn't, you weren't expecting me to call to talk to you about the weather or about how, the Braves did or whatever it was. So let's get straight to it. Here's what I want to accomplish. I'm controlling the conversation, okay? And I'm telling them the agenda. Number one, I want to hear exactly what it is that what intrigued you, what you're looking for, what about your current position that you potentially don't like, that's got you thinking or looking at a potential opportunity. Then secondly, I want to cover who we are, where we're headed, our culture, a little bit about me, okay, how I play a role in this. And then if it makes sense, okay, if you resonate with those, with some of that, if it makes sense, we'll talk about next steps in having a further detailed conversation. I've got about 15 minutes locked away on my calendar. Is that what you have on yours? That's literally the first 30 to 60 seconds of what I say every single time, okay? So what I want you to take from that is the expectation from the very beginning is I have an agenda. I'm not just flying by the seat of my pants. I have an agenda. I'm controlling the conversation. And guys, I will not let people control how long that meeting goes. If it gets to 15 minutes, I'm locking it down, okay? Hey, I know you got a lot of questions. Out of respect for your time and my time, I think we need to have a further conversation. And in that conversation, we can explore some of these details. You got to keep it to 15 minutes. Okay, there's no need in that first interview. Now, as far as expectations, okay, which is what Elazar asked, at the end of that first interview, I expect a couple of things from them. And this is exactly how I say it. I need you to do two things for me, okay? Number one, I'm going to send you an email. In that email, there's going to be an opportunity for you to schedule a full 40-minute interview. I need to make sure that when you schedule the interview that it says Colburn Financial 40-minute interview, okay? I need 40 minutes with you in order to go through the details of what we need to go through, okay? Secondly, I need you to watch the corporate overview again. And I say that most of the time I haven't even brought up the corporate overview yet, most of the time. Because I'll say, I need you to watch it again. Now, you already watched it, right? Because again, in the application, when they applied, they say, yes, I'm going to watch the overview. So I'm assuming, just like you assume the sale, I'm assuming that they followed through on their word, because that's a big deal to me. If they didn't, guys, that's a big red flag. If they did not do it, that doesn't resonate with our culture. Don't get greedy and don't hire everyone just because they sound good, okay? So I will tell them, you already watched that, didn't you? Yeah, I did. Okay, perfect. So here's what I need you to do. I want you to watch it again. But I want you to watch it again with two things in mind. First of all, I want you to watch it with a healthy bit of skepticism. And secondly, I want you to watch it with a notepad, and I want you to jot down every single possible question, no matter how big or small it is, because next conversation, literally, you're going to be asking me all the questions so that I can make sure you understand what this is and what it isn't. And then what I say, and I want them to know this, what I'm going to be doing in the next conversation is I'm going to be analyzing how prepared you are, how engaged you are, how interested you are, as well as what type of questions you're asking. Because if you don't resonate with our culture and it's not something that's a good fit on both sides of the table, at the end of that 40-minute conversation, I want to have two outcomes, one of two outcomes. One, you understand exactly what this is and you resonate with it and you want to move forward. Or number two, you understand exactly what this is, you don't resonate with it, and you don't want to move forward. Either way is fine with me, but we need to make a decision at the end of the next conversation what the best path is for you. Is that fair? That's how I end my first interview. It's very clear expectations. Guys, you have to be very firm on this stuff. You cannot let them control you. It's the reason why Chris and I have a very high percentage of people moving from first interviews to second interviews. It's also the reason why we hear, man, you guys are very, very professional, because we control the conversation. We have high expectations. We know what we're doing and why we're doing it. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to jump in right there and say that I've spoken with several people who have already spoken with other Symmetry agencies, and I've never heard nothing but praise for how we conduct the interviews, how professional we are in regards to it. I have heard more people come in that have been skeptical because they have been associated with other Symmetry agencies. And if you continue to frame it the way that we want to frame it, if you continue to brand it the way that we want to brand it, you can keep it very high level, very professional, and view yourself as a professional that controls the interview. That's where that traction starts happening.
Yeah, and I would say, if in Elazar, to answer your question, I can go through the second and the onboard. Like, I can go through all those, but guys, the most vital meeting is the first 15-minute interview. That is the most vital. It's the same as when you walk into a home, the first 30 to 60 seconds is the first impression. You can almost determine whether or not you're going to do business in the first minute or two, period. It's the same way with recruiting. I can tell within the very first 15 minutes of interacting with someone if I want them in my agency. And if I'm not excited about it, I don't put a lot of effort into it. Now, if they convince me otherwise through the process, I'm cool with that. Okay, because sometimes people don't interview very great the first time. They're nervous, this, that, whatever, and I get it. That's fine. But you can almost tell whether or not, very quickly, whether or not they're going to be a good prospect for our agency. Very quickly.
Yeah, I would actually counter it and say people interview higher and come lower over the course of time than people interview poorly and go up. In all transparency, I can legitimately only think of one person that I thought was a so-so interview and has exceeded my expectations. Two were so-so interviews and exceeded my expectations. And one ever actually ended up doing anything. And beyond that, most people start really high, want to give you the best version of themselves, and come down. So if you've got a person, and I'll say this again and again and again, and Mike said it, we were in an echo chamber yesterday talking about it. If a person cannot watch the corporate overview, they will never do anything for you that you ask them to do. It is a 13-minute long video. They said, yes, they will do it. It is part of the application when they book the appointment through Visita. Yes, I will do it. So they're not going to follow through. They're not going to do something that you asked them to do. You don't need to chase these people. You're not coming from a position of weakness. That is not who we are. That's not the type of firm that we are. We do not hire any old person that has a license or can get a license. Like any person that is willing to take the job, we don't have to hire them, and we won't hire them. That's not who we are. And I want you to continually view yourself as that.
Yeah, totally agree. So and again, if you just take those expectations, if you guys can literally just iron out the 15-minute interview, if you can lock that in and be super good at it, okay, it's probably the easiest interaction you'll have. It is so simple, but it's very key that you make sure that you hammer those couple of spots, especially in a cold market interview. Now, expectations in the second interview. And guys, if you're brand new, those of you that are just coming in, I know Karen, you're getting locked in. I know that we've got a couple of other people kind of coming on board with some of this. Jeffrey, you're coming on board. If all you do is the 15-minute interviews and you schedule the first couple of 40-minute interviews with Chris or me, you'll be golden, okay? I will tell you that both Chris and I do our second interviews differently, not a lot differently, but we have conversations differently, and that's fine. Expectation-wise, okay, and Chris, you can add to this as we go through it, but I know for me, expectations in the second interview, first of all, I expect you to follow through with what you said you were going to do in the first one. If you don't, if you come to the conversation without questions, you didn't watch the overview, I'm done. It's not happening, okay? Because again, that's a bad habit, and it's not a habit I want to spend my time trying to correct in my agency, okay? If you do the first interview right, they're going to come to the interview prepared, they've got questions, all the stuff. And literally, guys, it sets up the second interview very easily, because I'll call someone, and it's literally, Hey, Bob, I know that we chatted a little bit last time, hope the weather's doing better than what we talked about before, blah, blah, blah. We'll talk for 30 seconds, whatever. Hey, again, I want to respect your time. I've got 40 minutes locked away. I kind of, like I said in the first meeting, I want this conversation to be where you're really kind of firing questions at me like I had mentioned the first time. So I'm really just going to pass this off to you. What questions do you have prepared for me? And we'll spend as much time as we need to. We've got about 40 minutes. What questions do you have? That's it. It's not difficult. I'm not trying to be some eloquent whatever. I told him what it was going to be, and I told him it was going to be 40 minutes of he's got to prepare and come prepared to the conversation. And if his response is, well, I've got, I guess, tell me about how the leads work. Guys, that's not a good sign, okay? Because again, all that's explained in the corporate overview. And you can literally stop the conversation and say, well, Bob, let me just be frank. Did you actually watch the corporate overview? Because the corporate overview explains how the leads work. So is there something detailed about the leads that you need me to explain? Or are you wanting an overview? Because that's what the corporate overview is designed to do. So if they're doing it properly, they're coming to you with questions. Now, initially, the concern I think for new agents is, well, Mike, what happens if they ask me questions that I don't know? Because there is, I know yesterday I had a pretty involved conversation, and he was asking questions that were pretty deep, okay? That's why we suggest, if you're brand new and haven't done these, get them on your calendar. Visita will auto-schedule them. All you have to do is go to your Google Calendar, talk to your mentor, find out if the time is right for me or for Chris or for, again, if there's someone else in your upline. And then all you got to do is on your Google Calendar, add that person to the invitation list. It sends them an invite straight to, and I can show you how to do that on the screen. I'll just kind of resume the screen here. So if you go to...
Let me talk while you're doing this, while you're getting to your Google Calendar. The reason why we harp on this is because the highest quality candidates will actually have questions that are involved and detailed, and those are the people that you really want to work with. The easier someone comes in, the easier they go. So if you get someone and they're like, no, I don't have any questions, can we start? And you say, yeah, that person has no reason to just not also quit immediately. And yeah, you're going to get some questions that you don't know the answer to. That's going to be some intricately involved mechanism of how do I qualify for promotion? How does the spread structure work? Guys, you should know this. If you don't know this, shame on you. Get involved with the systems. Look at the hierarchy structures. Do all of these things. Get involved with this, because if you know it, you're going to be able to respond to it. And if you don't know it, figure it out, have us on the call. That's going to be where that traction starts happening, picking up better people. But it's also going to clarify to you guys, burning off the fog, you're going to be able to see so much more quickly how this machine can work to enable you to progress to where Mike and I are going at this point in time.
Can I ask a quick question?
Spot on. Yeah, go ahead, Ron, and then I want to show everyone how to kind of do some of this. But go ahead, Ron. Okay.
Well, as you're starting out, what I've found effective, just wanted to share this, is find out what their backgrounds are. I've spoken to people who have IT backgrounds, which is my background, who they resonate with me. And I had a guy the other day that I introduced you to, Mike, that very financially oriented. He's 25 years in the industry. And I had Mike do the second interview because that's who he is. And it was a great interview. So that's also something to think about.
Yeah, and I think I would encourage guys, don't do the first couple of interviews on your own as far as the full interviews. You can do the introductory interviews without any problem. Guys, if you can't do those, you shouldn't be recruiting, period. They're not difficult. Okay, be yourself. You gotta be able to tell the Colburn Financial story. Okay, you don't have to know all the details. All you gotta know is we've been in the business for 3 years. Started out, Mike Colburn's the founder. started out just as an independent agent, did, very well his first year, started growing the business second. You need to know the numbers, okay? $426,000 first year of production from the founder. Then we partnered up. Second year was the year that I ran into and met Christopher Clark, which is the CSO. You need to know that, okay? And then, we did $650,000 second year. This year we did just shy of 1.8 million. And we've got, 2017, we had about 60 writers, 60 agents writing business in the year of 2017. And our goals, you need to know that, okay? Then our goals moving forward. You need to know that 2018, our goal is 6 million. 2019 is 15 million. Then 30, then 50. We have a 5-year plan to be a $50 million company. If you know that, okay, then all you got to do is tell how you got introduced to Colburn Financial. That's it. That's all you got to do. Let me tell you about the background. This is when I joined. This is where and why I joined and why I'm a part of it. And this is who we're looking for. That's all you got to be able to explain in 5 minutes. It doesn't take that much time. And if you sit and talk about culture, what this business means to you, okay, it's all about be very transparent. Why did you join? Omar, I know for him, it's because he gets to see his kids go play baseball. He gets to spend time with his wife. He's not spending 80 hours a week, in the hospitality industry. This business is more about selling insurance. It's about balance. It's about spending time with his family. That's what it's about, and that's what it's given him. That's his story. Okay, so you guys have to be able to tell why you joined, whether or not you come from AIL, whether or not you come from another business, whether or not you come from totally different structure or another insurance background. Explain to them why you made the transition, why this is important, and let them know how we got to where we're at and where we're headed. Those items, if you can explain that in just a short couple of minutes, and I apologize, Omar, it's soccer, not baseball. I apologize.
I thought the same thing. I was like, ugh.
Sorry. I've got too much stuff going on. I appreciate you keeping me honest. So anyways, if you can explain those things and be very authentic, the authenticity and transparency that you project into this is what attracts people. Okay. There is a lot of BS that goes on inside of the industry and inside of other corporations that other people need to understand. We don't do that. Okay. What I do want to do is, before I get off, I got off a little bit on a soapbox there, so sorry about that. What I'm showing you on the screen here, I want to get back to this invite. So those of you that are newer, you've already seen this, but what I want you guys to understand is when you get an invite in, okay, and I'll show you one here. I don't even know who this guy is. I have a feeling it's not going to be a good fit. Just again, you'll know based on what I can see here. But when people fill out a form, that if they fill it out properly, you should be able to see all of their background. Now, how many of you think that it's a good idea for me to look at someone who previously worked in Nigeria? You think that would be a good fit? I don't think so. Okay. Maybe, maybe not. Okay. The reality is I don't know if this guy's even legal. Like, I don't know if he lives here. I have no idea. Okay. All of his background, he's worked in Nigeria, China, which is cool. Okay. Why are you looking for a change? He's looking for a relocation.
Let's stress that, because you will get, through cold market recruiting, you will get some international people applying for things just so they can move to the United States. We don't hire foreign nationals. It's not us being xenophobic. It's just a matter of, like, literally of a financial service industry. You can't hire a non-resident. It's just a bit now.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is going to be a good fit or not. Okay, I would respond and ask, and I would inquire before I accept the interview. Okay, and you'll notice that he has asked to have an interview. I have not accepted it yet. If I do, I can put a message. Most of you have seen this. Okay, but what I want you guys to get here is, if I were to accept it, okay, then it's going to go on my Google Calendar as well as my Visita calendar. So if I look at my Visita calendar, you'll see these are interviews, people, other interviews. This all syncs with my Google Calendar, okay? And you'll see that next week I've got, and I'm going to show you this one right here. This Ryan Nielsen, he found me through, I'm not even sure where. He works in the military, wanted to ask some questions. It's kind of a weird first interview. But the guy could be a good fit, okay? Here's just kind of his form. He found us on Glassdoor, Lakewood, Tacoma. Actually, Paul, this is the guy I was talking to you about that I might have you connect with just face-to-face. I think he's about 3 hours away from you. So if it gets there, I'll let you know. But anyways, this guy did the first interview. He followed through on the second part, okay? So you can see in the conversations, you know, he sent a request and his resume. You know, I sent a follow-up after my first conversation. And then now he has scheduled the second one, okay, looking forward to our next conversation, and that shows up on my calendar because I accepted it for next week right here on the 16th. Now, if you go back, okay, if I was wanting someone to interview with me on this as a new agent, okay, I've scheduled it, I've done the first interview, I've done my part, and I'm wanting Chris to do an interview with me. I'm not going to do that from inside of Visita. There's no way for me to add currently. I think that's going to come, okay, but there's no way for me to add someone else to this meeting. So what you'll have to do is go to the Google Calendar that it syncs with, click on the meeting. It's in your Google Calendar. All this stuff is here, their information. And all you got to do is hit edit and say, I want to add Chris. And make sure it's the calendar that he utilizes for his Google Calendar. Don't send it to his Colburn Financial one because he can't add it to his calendar using that, okay? So there's a little bit of work you got to do on your end. Make sure you understand what calendar you're supposed to add it to. Make sure you've had a conversation with your upline. Don't just add people, okay? Talk to them. Make sure they're available. Make sure that they can actually be on the conversation. Then go in and add them. Send the invite. Send the request. And it'll go on his calendar, no big deal, okay, or go on my calendar. So there's a couple of steps there that you can involve. You don't have to be the one that's always doing that first interview. Now, here's what we expect, though. After 3 or 4 interviews, you should be able to take the wheel, okay? Now, we might have 1 or 2 where you're on the call with us, but guys, this is not rocket science, okay? If you can go out and sell an application in a home, this is way less difficult than selling insurance face-to-face with people, okay? So, Chris, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, I think it continues to go back to the lead people manage process type of scenario. Guys, it's just a process, and it should become fairly procedural. I don't have any problem spending my days doing second-round interviews with you all. I don't have any problem doing first-round interviews with people that want to get some perspective on how to interview. Like, I don't mind that. And Mike and I have had several conversations where I said I would be giddy if I could spend the majority of my day doing second-round interviews for people, because if that's all that I did all day, that means that my team is my downline teams are growing at such a pace that I have people that are chasing agency owner, and that's what I want from day one. Anyone who's ever worked with me, they know I want their success. I want them to hit owner. I want them to go past owner. I want these things for you guys. And if you're having some sort of problem with it, let us know and let us be your rails on it for a little bit. But don't waste the opportunity. I mean, it really, really, really works. It's a skill, and you're new at it, and you have to realize that cold market recruiting is a little slower to spin around and end up in results than a warm market recruit for sure. But as far as the actual scalability of it, it's more scalable than anything else, and I have no problem doing it, but it involves you being just as committed to this as you are to production.
Yeah, and before because we got about 8 minutes. Again, those of you that are newer to this, if you're watching the screen and you're like, I have no clue what Vasita is, I don't even know what they're talking about, the ins and outs. Again, I'm going to encourage you, like we talked about in the very beginning, go back to the agent training website, go to the training stuff, all of this, that's your homework, okay? Don't message Chris and say, I need you to explain Vasita. Don't message me. Your job is to go back and do what you expect your team to do, and that is look at the videos, watch them, take notes on them, be a student of the business. You do that on the production side, do it on the recruiting side. Be the agency owner that you would want someone else to be for you, and so that you can teach your team that. So if you're not sure about this, go back and watch the videos. If you still don't understand it, then I'm sure that Chris and I, we're happy to help you. There's going to be questions. There's going to be nuances that you're going to need help on. Now, here's what I am going to say, and this is, again, just kind of a light that came on to me, and I think this is, I'm all about systemizing stuff. So, Chris, I'm going to say this verbally to everyone, and maybe you and I can work on this. I think that expectations is something that we need to put a PDF together of here's the expectations in the first meeting, here's the second meeting, here's the onboarding, so that everyone is doing the same exact thing, and we can have that posted inside of the website for people to download. When you're doing it, you should expect this in the first meeting. You should make sure you say these items. As far as expectations, as far as how they do it, it's up to them. But if they have the same expectations left at every meeting, I think that could probably legitimize and kind of further streamline what we're all doing.
Yeah, I have a bullet point agenda that I created a couple months ago just for myself. I'll try and find it. And you and I. So
let's do that. Let's do that expectation in the first 15-minute interview, the 40-minute, if there's a second follow-up, if there's a onboarding in all of those, and then I think if we even took it a step further, once they're onboarded, as far as once they're in our agent training setup, once they're in Slack, what do we expect once they're kind of in the system? In the first, and I think even if we extrapolate, what do we expect first month, then 3 months, 6 months? I mean, we can really, if we lay these all out, and if we as a team hold everyone accountable to that, and we're talking about it in those interviews, then I think that we can kind of lock this down and make this even tighter.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, before we finish up here, what I do want to do is I want to go through a couple of things on conference. I just want to be, again, we're very transparent. I want you guys to see who has registered. Some of you guys are getting commitments from people, and you can see whether or not they're here or not. Okay, we've got 26 people signed up. Okay, and we can see based on, and I'll just read these out for people that are on the phone. Okay, we've got people that are going: Elazar Santos, Brittany Santos, Daniel Williams, I know he's not going, but he is registered. Jim McIntyre is signed up. Victoria Baldwin, Ron Dilbert, Jeffrey Brown, Christopher Thompson, Kelly Suits, which I believe is Chris's girlfriend, Chris Thompson's girlfriend. Yvette Schuster, Hugh Shepard, two Lindas, Linda Rizzo, Linda Mujica. I don't know how to say that. I slaughtered it. Zeev, we've got Zeebo Hell going, Karen Jackson, myself, James King, who's out of Texas, Brian Broyles, my wife, Omar and his wife, Sean and Candace, Chris Miller, Farrell Boykin, Pam Boykin. If there are people not on this list, guys, I'm going to be very frank, okay? If there are people not on this list that have committed to going, you need to call them and you need to demand that they do one of two things. Either purchase the ticket or give you a time that they're going to purchase it. And again, if they can't follow through, then that's not a good sign for how they are in our culture. Guys, this is literally right now, there's only 30, I think they said here on the list, there's 32 tickets remaining that are $100. Then they're going to go to $129, then they're going to go to $159, okay? I need you guys to get on your team. I don't want to be the one hammering everyone, okay? Get on your own team, be a leader, and have these conversations with your team. We're shooting for 50 people. That's who we want. I know Chris has big aspirations to have 50 in his entire agency so he can shave my head. Good luck. We'll see how that pans out. I see that. You working out there, Chris?
Yeah, buddy.
So let's as a team, I'm calling you guys together as a team to have conversations with your downline, with the people in your agency, and get commitments of them buying the tickets, or when are you going to get it? Here's the reality is these tickets are going to go. So if they don't purchase them in the next couple of days, my guess is that they're going to be gone and they're going to have to pay $50 more. So if they're going to go, purchase them.
Beverly saying that she had a couple left, but there's not many left.
Yeah. So just do me a favor, work with your team, get those commitments. Again, the way people commit to conference is going to be a good indicator. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone's situation is this way, but it's oftentimes a good indicator of what to expect from them. Now, here's what I will say following up to that. If someone can't go to conference, because I know some people can't, and I know even some people on this call have expressed to me that they can't, okay? So here's my second expectation. We're talking a lot about expectations today. If you can't make it to conference, I expect you to go to an executive tour. I just expect it. That has to be on your docket. The closest executive tour to you, it's in March. You need to commit to going, and you need to commit to going and having people on at that event. And notice I'm not saying this to everyone in the agency. Guys, you're the ones that are going to become the future leaders.
Right.
You're the builders. You guys are the ones that are recruiting. If you're not involved and plugged into the recruiting events that Symmetry has, your team's not going to be. Okay, so I'm talking to you guys because you're the ones that are going to bring this and disseminate it down to the rest of the team. You guys are our frontline runners, okay? So just, if you don't know when those are, okay, I'll just, again, remind you, if you go back to agent training, if you look on the screen and you go back to agent training, the events are here. If you want to know how to have people get tickets, go to the events calendar. Everyone who has access to agent training, whether or not they have an official login or not, everyone has access to the events tab. Okay, go to the calendar, click on the Thrive National Conference. You can get tickets there. If you don't have tickets to the Toast to Success, do that. Then go to the next February. Man, my screen is going nuts on me here. Sorry, guys. Go to February, and in the end of February, beginning of March. Oh my word! Sorry, guys. My stuff is just going nuts. All right, here we go. You'll see the first one: Orlando, Austin, Kansas City, Salt Lake City. Okay. You go to March, and we've got, let's see, Boston, Grand Rapids, Madison, Wisconsin, Indianapolis, Indiana. All of those, every single one of us need to be signed up for at least one of those. I'm planning on attending at least 4. I'm going to try to make it to every single one of them. Okay. That's a big commitment for me. That's a big sacrifice for my family, but I'm committed to making sure this is a success. So, Paul, I know you're on the West Coast. I would say the best one you can make it to is Salt Lake City. I know it's a little distance from you, but if you can make it to there, anyone on the West Coast, unfortunately, that's the only one that we've got on the West Coast. Try to make it there. Sorry we don't have one I wish we had one in Washington, or I wish we had one to maybe California or somewhere in that arena. For some reason, they just didn't do it this year. But try to make a commitment if you can't come to conference to be at one of these tours. And guys, you got to be registered for these. So again, click on the link. There's an Eventbrite. It doesn't cost anything to register. It's just literally register, sign up, all these things. Hey, look at that, Ron. You're going. Look at that. You're on the screen. All right, so I expected that because I know you're bringing about 20 people. So that's all I've got for today. I know we're 2 minutes over. I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of all of that. Again, as a reminder, I am going to be posting this. I'll just go to this again so you guys are aware. Don't forget, I am going to be posting this on the training. It'll be under the builders column. So when you go to the video audio training, you'll find this clean setup. Go to the builder's corner, and I will be posting that here. This is last week's, and I will also be working on making sure you guys have the details of what these are, so you're not just clicking on dates and hoping you get what you need. So I've got some stuff I'm working on for that. I hope you guys enjoyed today. I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day. I will leave you with this. Make sure, guys, that you make sure you get things updated in Opt. Make sure you guys load as much as you can from today's production. We're a little behind for the week. We're at 37, almost 40,000 of production. We need to be at 70 to 80,000 of production. So if you're holding on to anything at all, if you're holding on to it, get it into Opt, unless it's going to be declined. Get it into Opt. I need you guys to kind of pull your weight on that. And I appreciate each one of you guys. Stay safe. Thank you for your time. And looking forward to chatting with you guys again Sunday evening as well as Monday. God bless, guys.